Although I do project him to be an inside linebacker long-term, I actually do think it's best for the Philadelphia Eagles' future if Jihaad Campbell becomes an edge rusher. I'll tell you why. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Louie DiBiase. Welcome into this Friday edition of the show. It's brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONNFL in all capital letters for $20 off your first purchase. So the Philadelphia Eagles got what I've called a Swiss Army knife in the first round of the NFL draft. For months now, I've been saying Jihaad Campbell is going to be an inside linebacker that can really dominate as a blitzer through the A and B gap. You can move him across the formation as this free-roaming pass rusher. I think he could be really good if he develops as a coverage linebacker. I think he's really good flowing to the football against the run. He can play some edge rusher and get to the quarterback in that way. But long-term, I've made the take that Jihaad Campbell, I think his skills, his ceiling is best at a stand-up inside linebacker position rather than him playing predominantly on the edge alongside guys like Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. And while I still believe that that is the case, and while I still do believe that I don't want to put a label on Jihaad Campbell, I don't want to say he's just going to be an inside linebacker or just an edge rusher. I truly think they're going to use him as, again, he's been referred to this many times, as a Swiss Army knife from hell. At the same time, I actually do think it's best for, I was thinking about this the other day, I think it's best for the Philadelphia Eagles' future if Jihaad Campbell ends up playing edge long-term. Like, if that is where he is the most comfortable, if that is where he develops the best, I think that's best for the team. While I think for the player, again, the ceiling is at inside linebacker, but for the future of the team, I think the Eagles should almost be rooting for him to play edge. And why do I feel that way? Well, I think number one, the Eagles, I think, have a bigger need on the edge. When you look at inside linebacker, they have a first-team All-Pro in Zack Baun, who's in his prime, just signed an extension for 3 years. He's getting top 5 money at this position. Like, they are set with their every down star linebacker in the middle. Nakobe Dean, when he is back from injury, when he is healthy, I think he is a really, really good football player. I think he's one of the most underrated players on this team. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the NFL at his position. Whereas on the edge, Nolan Smith, I think, is a star in the making. And while I'm really high on Jalix Hunt and his ceiling, and I do think Azeez Ojulari and Joshua Uche will contribute in 2025, and I think they'll outplay the contracts, the one-year deals with pretty much no guaranteed money that Howie Roseman gave them. At the same time, there's more questions on the edge. Like, we know what we're getting in Zack Baun for the most part. We know what we're getting in Nakobe Dean if he is healthy. I even think Jeremiah Trotter Jr. has a very high floor as a inside linebacker at the NFL level. I don't think he's going to ever be a star, but I think if Jeremiah Trotter is your starter at inside linebacker, he's one of your starters on the inside at that spot for years to come. I think you could do better, but I think you could always do worse too. Like, I think he could be what TJ Edwards was for you for a while before he became a stud. Like, early years TJ Edwards is what I think Jeremiah Trotter could be. So it's crazy to say that the Philadelphia Eagles have more guarantees at inside linebacker than edge, because normally it's the majority, 95% of the franchise's history, it's the complete opposite. But Pro Football Focus today ranked the Eagles as the best inside linebacker group in the entire NFL. They said the Eagles have the best linebackers in all of football. On the edge, there's a lot of potential, but they only really have, I think, one sure thing, and that's Nolan Smith. Jalix Hunt, we still don't know what he's going to become. Ojulari and Uche, they're only on one-year contracts. I do think if Jihaad Campbell panned out on the edge, I think that's better for the Eagles' long-term future on defense. I think the other thing is, too, just naturally, the edge rusher position, why they've always been more set there than linebacker is because the Eagles and the majority of the NFL feel this way, and I think they're correct, that the edge rusher position is more important than inside linebacker when it comes to building a consistent Super Bowl caliber defense year after year, having good edge rushers to get to the quarterback, I think is more important. Not that inside linebacking stars are not important to have, but having star edge rushers, having good players and good depth there is more important than having inside linebackers. So if Jihaad Campbell, if you could, check off a box and say he becomes a star inside linebacker or a star edge rusher, not what do you think is going to happen, but what would you want to happen? I think the Eagles and everybody else would probably check off the box that he becomes a Micah Parsons player that, yeah, he's versatile and moves around the formation, but predominantly he does play on the edge. I think people would prefer that. Again, I project that he will be best at inside linebacker, and that's why I think they should keep him there, because I'm thinking about the player, not the team. But the Eagles should almost hope that he actually does develop better on the edge because it's a more important position, because there are more question marks. And I also just think in general, it allows the better combination of players on the football field. Having Nakobe Dean on the field is a good thing. Nakobe Dean, again, when healthy, is a very, very good football player. And if Jihaad Campbell becomes a star at inside linebacker, sorry, Nakobe, for as good as you are and the Georgia connection you have and the leadership you showed last year as the green dot play caller on defense and how good he was. Like, he broke out in year 3. Sorry, if Jihaad Campbell is a star, like, he was their first round pick they moved up for. He has the years of tenure on his rookie contract. He has the higher ceiling and the more versatile skill set. Nakobe Dean's in a contract season. Sorry, but Jihaad Campbell is going to get that spot, and Nakobe's likely not going to get a deal in Philadelphia if that scenario plays out. I can't imagine the Eagles give him a contract to go on top of drafting Jihaad Campbell in the first round and Zack Baun his contract. If Campbell's an inside linebacker, and he's good, that kind of seals the fate of Nakobe in Philadelphia. You almost might want Campbell to play edge, because then you can have Campbell, Baun, and Dean on the field all at the same time. That could still allow you to keep Dean long-term if you do want to pay him, although, again, I doubt it, but it gives you that optionality more. And again, I think Campbell and Dean on the field, a developed edge rusher in Campbell and Nakobe Dean, is a better combo than, I'd say, Campbell on the inside at linebacker and then a Azeez Ojulari or a Jalix Hunt on the edge. Nakobe Dean is one of the best players on that defense, underratedly so. And for those reasons, I feel like for the team, I think it might be best if Jihaad Campbell actually plays edge rusher the majority of the time long term. And again, I'm not going to put this guy in a box. I do think he's going to do so many things, wear so many different hats for this defense, and I do project that he will be better as an inside linebacker. That's where Vic Fangio has him playing now. But for the team's future, I thought about this the other day. I thought that, yeah, maybe he's better off playing edge for the Eagles long term. I actually kind of hope that that's what plays out for the Eagles' future. I just think that makes more sense. But we'll see. I do think he's going to be a better inside linebacker than edge rusher, so this might all be a moot point. But I think he's going to be good at both spots. All right, guys, coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast, I got some unique superlatives for you that I want to get into, including who's the most clutch player on this Super Bowl star-studded Eagles roster. Got some other questions for you to pose in this Friday edition of Locked On Eagles. We'll get into that coming up next. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time for Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and control when the moment is right. If traditional options have not worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch, and I love that it's completely online. It connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. So head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL and use our code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatments. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. So I saw the Philadelphia Eagles post a tweet yesterday hyping up Devonta Smith as the all-time franchise leader in postseason receiving yards. And it got me thinking about just in general how clutch he is as a football player, how clutch he's been since the 2021 season when he was drafted in the top 10 of that first round. And, I started to think, okay, who are the other clutch football players on this team? And so I decided to go through some unique superlatives, including the most clutch player on this football team. So I posed 8 different questions for today's show. And I do want to lead with who is the most clutch player, because Devonta Smith has a really good case for it. But then again, the heroics of Saquon Barkley last year in the fourth quarter. He might have been the best fourth quarter player in football last year, even when you combine quarterbacks like Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow. Like Saquon was the guy, the go-to guy in the fourth quarter of games last year. Jalen Hurts is one of the most clutch quarterbacks I've ever seen, especially in franchise history. He's the most clutch player. He is one of the most cool, calm, collected, big-time, big game risers that the NFL has ever seen at the quarterback position and that college football has ever seen at Alabama and Oklahoma. So he's in there, and Jalen Carter. I mean, just look at the 2 plays he made against the Rams. The forced fumble when it's a one-score game, and the Rams are driving down the field. You think the game could get out of hand. The Rams could take control, and Jalen Carter flips the field. And then the Rams are knocking on the door again, about to win the football game in Eagles territory. And Jalen Carter gets the game-winning sack to save what eventually was a Super Bowl season. So it should be obvious. It should go without saying that a Super Bowl team has a lot of clutch football players. But I will say, of a lot of clutch players on this roster, I do think that the all-time leader in playoff receiving yards, Devonta Smith, I do think that he is the most clutch player on this football team, even over Saquon. I'll say removing Jalen Hurts from this equation. We won't talk about quarterback because that's just on another stratosphere, right? Quarterback is a completely different conversation. Of the skill position players, of the linemen and the DBs, I think Devontae's number one. And that one stat really says it all. Like, he has the most, he's only been in the league since 2021, and he has more receiving yards in playoff history than any Philadelphia Eagle ever. He was your leading receiver in 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, including the dagger to win the Super Bowl this year in New Orleans in Super Bowl 59. I just think he is always the guy that, is A.J. Brown the better receiver? Yeah. Is A.J. Brown potentially the best receiver in football? You could make the argument. He is a top 3 player on this roster, but Devonta Smith is kind of the go-to guy for Jalen Hurts, when the game is on the line and gotta have it moments on third down and close games in the fourth. I mean, just look at those Super Bowls. Look at Super Bowl 57, in the fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts is trying to drive down and win the game. Who's his go-to player? It's Devonta Smith. Look at this year in the fourth quarter of that Jaguars game. The deep ball down the left sidelines, the amazing one-handed touchdown grab. It's Devonta Smith, and he always steps up when he needs to make the play. Even the NFC Championship game against San Francisco, that one-handed grab in the first quarter that really set the tone, that first touchdown, helped you take control of the game to get to the championship. I just think Devonta Smith, he is such a clutch football player. He's so good on third down. He's so good in the fourth quarter. He's been doing this since Alabama. I mean, this kid is, a freshman in 2018, and he catches the game winner in the national championship. So, yeah, it's compared to a lot of other truly elite clutch players as well, like Saquon Barkley and a Jalen Carter, a Zack Baun, A.J. Brown, and Dallas Goedert are very clutch in their own right. But I think Smitty is the most clutch player on this football team, and I think that playoff record, that backs it up. He is at his best in the postseason, in the Super Bowl especially, and in college in the national championship. Some other superlatives. We talked about Jalix Hunt in segment 1, and although I think it might be best for the Eagles' future to have Jihaad Campbell playing on the edge, I do think I posed the question, who of all the unproven players has the highest ceiling? Between Keely Ringo and Moro Ijoma and Tyler Steen, Drew Makuba and Sidney Brown, who's the unproven player with the highest ceiling? I actually think it might be Jalix Hunt. if we're removing, let's say we remove the current draft class, because if we did that, I think it's obviously Jihaad Campbell. But if we're talking about like year 2, year 3 potential breakout stars, we've talked about a lot on this show that aren't exactly proven just yet. I do think Jalix Hunt has the highest ceiling. It's why they drafted him in the 3rd round, even though he was such a raw player. He was so new to the position. Like, he has the size, he has the length, he has the power, he has the speed and the bend. Like, it's why, coaches saw him in college, saw his skill set, and said, no, you're not a safety, you're an edge rusher. And it's crazy the plays he was already making in year 1, in the playoffs, in the Super Bowl, as a guy that's still very inexperienced at this position. Like, Vic Fangio talked about how it's scary what Jalen Carter could become because he's still learning his position. Jalix Hunt is in that same boat. Like, he's still a puppy when it comes to the edge rusher position, and he's already much farther along in his development process than I thought he would be. Like, I made the take on the show before. If you told me Jalix Hunt was going to be a top 2 edge rusher in year 2, I wouldn't have believed it. I thought it would be Sweat or Reddick or Graham or another veteran free agent or somebody they traded for. Like, I thought, Hunt would be a 3rd or 4th guy in the rotation for a couple of years, and then hopefully he reaches that ceiling and then he can become that guy. But I think this is kind of the best case scenario for Jalix Hunt. I do think he has the highest ceiling from a skill set perspective, and he put the tape on display in the playoffs. Like, the tape is there. We know he can do it. Now it's about doing that more consistently as he has a bigger workload. As the snap count increases, can he maintain that efficiency? Does it stay the same? Because I think of all those players, he does have the highest ceiling. I want to talk about Devonta Smith again. I want to pose another superlative here. Who is held back the most by such a talented roster that has stars everywhere? From an individual statistic standpoint, not, the Eagles are harming Devonta Smith and they're holding him back and not letting him be involved in the team. But I do think because this offense has A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts' running ability and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley and an elite offensive line that they want to run the football behind, I do actually believe that of everyone on this roster, Devonta Smith is probably being held back the most when it comes to not being able to truly fulfill his ceiling. And again, I'm not saying this in a negative way. It's a good thing. The Eagles are so good that a talent like Devonta Smith is kind of underrated, and he's kind of being held back from an individual production standpoint. Smitty he should have got 1,000 yards this year if he wasn't injured, and then they rested starters week 18. He normally gets 1,000 yards or, 900 plus every single season. But I truly believe, and I went back and watched a lot of those playoff highlights when I was prepping for this show. And of all of them, it's funny enough, I watched that 2023 Buccaneers playoff wildcard game. The only positive of that game was Devonta Smith. A.J. Brown did not play. He was the go-to guy for the first time since 2021. And Smitty looked like one of the best receivers in football. I went back and watched that tape and said, I've made this take before on the show, and that kind of confirmed it. I really believe if he was on an offense that got a Jamar Chase 2024-like workload, or what Justin Jefferson gets in Minnesota, or Tyreek Hill in Miami, or like a Travis Kelce in Kansas City, if he is the go-to guy in a pass-heavy offense, if he was on the Los Angeles Rams, and he was what Cooper Kupp has been over the years, and Puka Nacua the last 2 years, I believe he'd be a top 3, top 5 receiver in the NFL from a statistical standpoint. So when it comes to who's being held back by this roster the most because it's so good that everybody has to eat, I actually think it's Smitty again. I think Devonta Smith, the consensus around the NFL is that he's one of the best he's the best receiver 2 in football, and he's a top 20 or top 15 receiver. I believe he's closer to top 5, top 10 than he is top 15, top 20. And it's because he has a top 3 receiver in front of him. He has an elite tight end. He has the number 1 running back in football on his team and a quarterback that runs more than almost anybody in the league at his position. So I think of anybody being held back, it's probably Devonta Smith. Another superlative for you. Of all these players, who's the guy? We talk about Jalix Hunt potentially as that next breakout star. I think he has the highest ceiling of all those year 2, year 3 projection-like players. Who's a guy, though, in general that's on the rise in year 1, year 2, year 3 that I think is about to make that jump into top 5 players at his position status heading into 2025? I think it's Quinyon Mitchell. I believe he's already that kind of talent. Last year, when you look at the tape, how he just erased star receivers, it felt like week after week, was atop the league in forcing completions and pass deflections, barely gave up big plays all year, barely gave up any sort of touchdowns. Like he was so quiet all year. Like you never noticed Quinyon Mitchell, and that's such a compliment for a cornerback, especially a rookie. Like to be that poised and to barely get beat like that as a rookie out of Toledo is incredible. So I already think he's a top 5, top 10 talented corner. If he gets the turnovers like I was talking about the other day on the show, I think he will cement himself as a top 5 guy. Like you're going to talk about Quinyon Mitchell this year. I truly believe this in the same light as Pat Surtain, as Derek Stingley, as Sauce Gardner. Like I think he's going as, Trent McDuffie. He's going to be Jalen Johnson. He's going to be one of those players. I think if the interceptions are there, he's already that guy in my book, but I think from a national perspective, if he starts getting the interceptions in 2025, he's going to be considered a top 5 player. If he can maintain what he did as a rookie, if not get better, and now he's making plays on the ball, he's finishing plays, turning those forced incompletions into picks, I think Quinyon Mitchell is going to be seen as a top 5 corner by the end of year 2. I truly believe that. I think you could already make that argument for him heading into year 2. All right, guys, we'll continue with these superlatives as we wrap up this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. And coming up next, I want to talk about who is the most inexpensive veteran, the best bang for your buck that the Eagles are getting right now. Who is the most underpaid veteran star on this roster? I have an idea of who that is. We'll get into it coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Gametime. Have you ever decided at the last minute to head to the ball game with some family and friends? I know I have. Last minute, I decided the day before in 2022, I'm going to go to the NFC Championship against San Francisco. Maybe it's game day and you suddenly realize you want to be in the stands. That's exactly where Gametime comes in. It's the easiest way to grab last-minute tickets without the stress. With the money you save on tickets, you can splurge on food, drinks, merch, or even invite a bigger group to come with you. Gametime makes it all possible. They make buying tickets fast and simple. Prices on the app, they actually drop the closer you get to first pitch, and they've got incredible last-minute deals, clear seat views, and a lowest price guarantee that takes the worry out of buying tickets. Gametime is the official ticketing partner of Locked On MLB, making it easy to browse the app from an exciting upcoming MLB game, like the Yankees, the Mets. Got some diehard Mets fans. Maybe I'll get to a game in New York this year. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, we're continuing some unique superlatives as we wrap up this Friday edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. And I believe the Eagles have the best roster in football. And there's a lot of guys that the Eagles have taken care of over the last few years with long-term, top 5, top 10 average per year salary deals, especially on the offensive side of the ball. Like, there's a lot of guys that they got theirs. They got their justified contracts. They were fed. Pretty much everybody on the offensive side of the football. There's a lot of guys on defense that are about to get theirs, like Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Zack Baun just got a top 5 contract for inside linebackers. But I will say there are still some veterans and some younger players that, considering their skill set, considering their star-like power, their production on the field, they should be seen as underpaid. Of all those guys, like, who is the guy the Eagles are kind of getting highway robbery out of right now? Like, it's the best bang for your buck, the best deal on the books. I think it's considering they just got him to take a pay cut this year. He was already underpaid, in my opinion, for when he's healthy. And now he had to take a $4 million pay cut. He's only making, 10, 11, maybe $11 million this year. I think the most inexpensive underpaid veteran this year, the best deal the Eagles have on the roster, is Dallas Goedert at the money that he's at. Because again, yes, you have to be okay with Dallas Goedert missing 3 to 5 games a year. It's just going to happen. He has not been able to stay healthy pretty much his entire career, especially since he's been the go-to guy at tight end, and he's the guy over Zach Ertz. But when he's on the football field, and he's always there in the playoffs, he's one of the best playoff performers in franchise history. He's one of the most clutch players the Eagles have had in the last 7 years. He's actually only behind Devonta Smith in all-time playoff receiving yards and receptions. So him and Smitty are the two best playoff performers this team has had as receivers. He has one of the most complete skill sets at tight end I've ever seen, from a deep ball, blocking standpoint, run after the catch ability. Skill-wise, Mark Farzetta said it on our squad show a few weeks ago, Dallas Goedert's a top 3 talent at tight end. He's a top 5 player at the position when he's on the field. Because of the injuries, I think it does drop him a little bit in the power rankings, but for him to only be on a 1-year contract, especially after last year's playoff run, where he had to take a pay cut this year, and he's getting under $11 million this season, considering some of the other tight end deals that have been going around this offseason, I think that is the best deal the Eagles have on their roster, the one that they're just getting away with murder, right? On offense, everybody else is getting top 10 money. I think everybody else, except for Jahan Dotson and Tyler Steen, right? So, 8 of 9 or 9 of the 11 players that play the majority of snaps are getting top 10 money. The only ones that aren't are Goedert, although he's getting probably top 10 maybe this year. Probably top 10, but not top 5. It's him, Dotson, and Tyler Steen. Everybody else got theirs. They got their long-term top-tier contract extensions. Goedert's on a 1-year deal. Of all the players on the books, because there's a lot of guys on rookie deals that you're getting for nothing, like Jalen Carter is obviously the most underpaid player on this roster. But from, talking about veterans, underpaid veterans, I think it's obviously Dallas Goedert. And you could probably still consider Saquon Barkley, even with his new deal, as underpaid. Like, that's probably a bargain. But I'd say right now of the veterans, it's likely Dallas Goedert. Maybe you can make the argument as well for Reed Blankenship. I think it's one of the two, but Dallas Goedert to me is the most underpaid veteran on this football team. All right, let's get into a couple, I'll say negative superlatives, just preparing you for the worst case scenario in 2025. If there was a star from last year, and again, it's comparatively speaking. So I'm not predicting this player is going to drop off this year. But if there was any star from 2024 that was going to take a step back this year, let's say you did face some 2023-like issues, somebody is going to regress a little bit, who would it be? It's only because it's been such a small sample size, and before that, he really was just a depth piece on a roster at a different position. I believe he's going to be a top 5 linebacker in football this year. He's going to earn that contract that he got. He's going to be a star. But if you said, hey, I just looked into the future, there is a star from last year that it didn't work out this year, or he took a step back. He's not as good as he was last year. You could say it's one of the rookies, but I think Quinyon and Cooper, they're just going to get better and better. I think same with, Jalix Hunt and Moro Ijoma. Nolan Smith, I don't think is going to regress. I think he's going to have a double-digit sack season. If there was one of those guys, who would it be? I think, again, just because he's only played 1 year at this position, and yes, it was an all-pro season, but it's such a small sample size, it would be Zack Baun. I think that's, of all the guys, the number one player that could potentially regress. I am not predicting it by any standpoint. I actually think he's going to get better. Even if he's not a first-team All-Pro, he's going to seem more comfortable in the defense year 2 with Vic Fangio. I think they need him even more this year with the injuries to Nakobe Dean, the rookie inexperience, and question marks about his role with Jihaad Campbell. They need Baun more this year. But again, like gun to my head, if you told me in the future, hey, somebody takes a step back, I might say it's Zack Baun. But I'm not saying it's going to happen. I just think it's the most likely of any of the stars from the 2024 roster. This one I was actually asked about from a listener. If there was a guy that things just didn't work out with for the future and a player that almost wanted a change of scenery, who would it be? Again, just want to preface this by saying it's not what I'm predicting, but if there was a guy at the end of this year that said, hey, I need a change of scenery, I do want out, don't kill me, but I do think it might be A.J. Brown. And I'm not saying that that's who he is. I'm not trying to start WIP drama. I'm not saying he wants out right now. But I've seen the way things go with consistent title contenders in a lot of sports. I've seen the way things go when you win consistently, when you win championships. And I know the position that he is at wide receiver. He's not a diva. He's not a Terrell Owens. He's not going to do sit-ups in his driveway like T.O. did back in 2005. But I will say, A.J. Brown has a ring now. When you have a ring, it changes things. He's talked about this offseason about how, and I'm not saying, again, he means something about this, but he said the Super Bowl, winning it, everybody says it's always about just getting the trophy. That's what the goal is. That's why you work as hard as you do. But he said it, didn't feel as great as he thought it did. He's more obsessed with the process, and he's obsessed with his craft and with domination. And that's a great mindset to have. Like, you want A.J. Brown thinking that way. That's how Devonta Smith thinks. He said it himself too. That's how Jalen Hurts thinks. That's how all the Georgia Bulldogs think. That's how you repeat. You need guys with that kind of mindset. In 2018, they didn't have that, and it's why they regressed. So I think that's a good thing. But, last year he made comments about wanting the passing game to be better. This year he's talked about in the offseason wanting to dominate individually, about his craft. Like, that is what he's talking about. Like, his change of perspective is really important to him. I'm not saying it's over team wins, but it's something in his mind. He has talked about himself, the offense needing to evolve this year. That to me feels like he's hinting at them saying, hey, we need to pass better this year. Like, we need to pass more and we need to pass better. And I do wonder if the Eagles say, yeah, of course we need to pass more efficiently, but the volume's not going to change. Like, the volume's going to be what it was last year. We want to win. We believe it's by pounding Saquon Barkley into the ground for years, like running him into the ground, letting him be the face of your offense for a couple years behind this offensive line with Jalen Hurts. That's what's going to get the job done. If that's the case, again, if there was somebody that wanted a change of scenery, not wants out and demands a trade and starts drama, but at the end, might want a different future, I think it would be A.J. Brown. I talked about it on the squad show the other day. I wonder how guys' mindsets change after championships. And if there was one player to do it, I'm not saying A.J. Brown's a diva, but I just heard those comments, and I kind of know how receivers think and how athletes think after they've won championships and have consistently competed for them. And your goals start to change a little bit. I think he's going to, and as he should, I think it's understandable. He should want the ball more this year. He should want to dominate individually and get all pro statistics. I think that's something that's very justifiable in striving for. And I just wonder if the Eagles say, we're not changing our blueprint, if he'll be cool with, he still had over 1,000 yards last year and led the team in targets, but a couple of years ago, this guy was a 1,400-yard receiver. I do wonder if he's not getting back to that. And even if they are still winning championships, if he's going to be satisfied. It's something that I'm kind of curious about. One more here. If there was a player that was going to get replaced this year, a starter that the Eagles eventually do replace during the year, who would it be? I think this one's obvious. I think it's right guard Tyler Steen. I think there could be a time this year where Steen's fine, right? He's not killing you. He's not Jamon Brown from 2020, but Jeff Stoutland and Nick Sirianni might say, Kevin Patullo might say, hey, we could do a little bit better. Let's try somebody else out. If there was a guy to get pulled from the starting lineup, who would it be over, potential upgrade on the depth chart? I think it'd be Steen. I think they might say, hey, Cameron Williams is starting to come along. Halfway through the year. The rookie is making a lot of progress. We like him on the inside, or Miles Hinton or Drew Kendall, or hey, we just want a safer presence in Matt Pryor inside. If there was a position that just didn't go right this year and somebody got pulled from the lineup, or there's a change, like last year, Avonte Maddox in the slot, they said, we got to upgrade this spot. It's Cooper DeJean. And that was huge. If they need to make that kind of move this year to improve the team, where is it at? I project it's probably at right guard Tyler Steen. So those are some unique superlatives I thought of the last few days. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on X at DiBiase, LOE, at Locked On Birds. And thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. As always, thanks so much for downloading, watching, and listening. And let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.